The rain fell in sheets against the leaded windows of Clarence House, blurring the London skyline into a watercolor of gray and indistinct shapes. Inside the opulent study, the air was thick with a tension so profound it seemed to mute the very sounds of the crackling fire in the grate. For the first time in a long time, the carefully constructed facade of royal composure had crumbled, leaving behind a scene of raw, unfiltered human emotion. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, sat perched on the edge of a velvet settee, her shoulders shaking with the effort of silent sobs that she could no longer contain. The tears she had bravely held back for weeks, months even, finally broke through the dam of her restraint, tracing hot paths down her pale cheeks. She held a crumpled handkerchief in her trembling hands, twisting the fabric as if it were the only thing tethering her to the ground. Across from her, in a high-backed armchair, sat Queen Camilla. Her posture was ramrod straight, her hands folded motionlessly in her lap. Her face was an unreadable mask, a lifetime of navigating the treacherous currents of the public eye, having gifted her with the ability to retreat into a fortress of silence. She offered no words of comfort, no sympathetic gesture, only a heavy, watchful stillness that filled the room with a different kind of anguish. Standing by the window, his back to the two women, was King Charles III. His reflection in the rain-streaked glass was a ghostly image of a man struggling for control. His jaw was clenched so tightly that a muscle pulsed visibly in his temple. He gripped the edge of the marble windowsill, his knuckles white, as if he needed the physical support to stop himself from erupting. The anger was a living thing inside him, a volatile mix of frustration, guilt, and a fierce, protective love for his family that left him feeling utterly powerless. He was the king, the fount of the nation. Yet in this room, he was just a husband and a father, caught in the devastating crossfire of a war he never wanted and felt he couldn't stop. The silence in the room was punctuated only by Kate's muffled weeping and the steady, accusatory ticking of a long case clock in the corner. The tears that now stained Kate's face were not born of a single event, but were the culmination of years of silent endurance. To understand how they had arrived at this painful impasse, one had to look back to the very beginning, to a time when a young, bright-eyed university student first captured the heart of a prince. When Kate Middleton arrived on the scene, she was an outsider in every sense of the word. She was beautiful, intelligent, and came from a close-knit, self-made family, but she did not possess an ancient, aristocratic lineage. This, royal authors and insiders would later claim, was a problem for Camilla. Having spent decades in the periphery of the royal fold, first as a confidant, and later as the wife of the Prince of Wales, Camilla was acutely aware of the importance of pedigree. According to Christopher Anderson's book, Game of Crowns, Camilla was reportedly a bit of a snob, proud of her own aristocratic roots and her family's historical connections to the monarchy. To Camilla, Kate's background, descended from coal miners and a flight attendant, seemed too lowly for the future King of England. It wasn't just about class, it was about a clash of worlds. The whispers in royal circles suggested that Camilla found Kate to be pretty but rather dim, a harsh judgment passed on a young woman who was simply trying to navigate the unspoken rules of a centuries-old institution without a rule book. There was also a more strategic element to her concern. Camilla had spent years fighting to salvage her own reputation and secure her place beside Charles. She was keenly aware of the immense popularity of the late Princess Diana and the adoration the public had for her sons. As William grew up and his relationship with Kate blossomed, they became a media sensation overnight. They were young, glamorous, and represented the future. Some insiders claimed Camilla felt threatened, fearing that William and Kate's popularity would completely overshadow her own painstakingly rebuilt image with Charles. They were sucking up all the attention, and for a woman who had waited a lifetime to be accepted, it was a bitter pill to swallow. This quiet animosity came to a head in 2007. The pressures of university life and the glaring spotlight of the world's media had taken their toll on William and Kate's relationship. William, still young and unsure about settling down so early, began to have doubts. Sensing an opportunity, Camilla allegedly stepped in. Wielding the enormous influence she had over her husband, she reportedly whispered in Charles's ear, urging him to have a serious conversation with his son. Charles, whether out of genuine concern for his son's happiness or influenced by his wife, did just that. He sat William down and told him that he needed to either make a firm commitment to Kate or release her. He could not keep her hanging on indefinitely. The result was a devastating and very public split. The world watched as a heartbroken Kate was photographed looking miserable, while William behaved like a carefree singleton. It was a moment that could have broken them forever. But as Kate would later reflect, that painful period made her stronger. 6 weeks later, the couple reconciled, and their bond was unbreakable. The first battle was over, but the war for mutual understanding and acceptance had only just begun. The years that followed the reconciliation were a masterclass in patience and quiet diplomacy, largely orchestrated by Kate. She had learned a valuable lesson. Direct confrontation was not a currency that held value within the firm. If she was to survive and thrive, she needed to build bridges, not burn them. And so, with the same quiet determination that saw her through her university years and the difficult breakup, she embarked on a personal mission to win over the two people who held the keys to her future happiness: her future father-in-law, Charles, and the woman who had once tried to push her away, Camilla. It was not an easy task. After Charles and Camilla married in 2005, the relationship between the Prince of Wales and his sons, particularly William, was often described as strained and filled with friction. The boys were fiercely protective of their mother's memory, and seeing Camilla officially take a place at their father's side was a complex emotional hurdle. Into this tense dynamic stepped Kate. She understood that her role was not to take sides, but to be a soothing balm. She became, as royal biographer Angela Levin noted, a crucial peacemaker within the family. She noticed the common threads that could bind them. Where William's interests lay elsewhere, Kate shared a deep and genuine passion for art with both Charles and Camilla. She began to subtly nurture this connection. When William was occupied with his royal duties or his work as an air ambulance pilot, Kate would quietly arrange to visit galleries with Charles or join Camilla for private viewings. These seemingly small gestures had a profound effect. They allowed Charles, a man known for his emotional and often awkward nature, to connect with his daughter-in-law on a level he understood. He saw in her not just the mother of his grandchildren, but a kindred spirit, someone who appreciated the arts, history, and the natural world with the same fervor he did. For Camilla, this olive branch was a way to slowly reshape the narrative. She had endured a terrible time when she first joined the royal family, facing a barrage of hostility from the press and public. Royal expert Angela Levin suggested that this experience made Camilla empathetic towards Kate, who was stepping into a similarly daunting, albeit different, spotlight. She reportedly tried to guide Kate, warning her of potential pitfalls, and explaining the importance of certain protocols that might seem ridiculous to an outsider, but were essential within the firm. Kate, in turn, was said to be very grateful for this insider knowledge, a stark contrast to Meghan Markle, who, according to the same sources, was not interested in such advice. The relationship between the two women evolved into a quiet, functional partnership. They were never going to be best friends. The ghosts of the past and the inherent rivalry of their positions saw to that, but they found a way to coexist with mutual respect. Body language expert Judy James observed them together on numerous occasions, noting a dynamic of quiet support. At a particularly poignant Remembrance Sunday service shortly after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, Camilla, in her first major public appearance as Queen Consort, was visibly overwhelmed with anxiety. She stood on the balcony of the Foreign Office, her hands nervously fluttering and fidgeting with her hymn sheet. Beside her, Kate was a pillar of calm. She stood perfectly still, her posture serene, and when Camilla spoke to her while staring straight ahead, Kate turned her head quickly in a gesture of polite concern. It was a subtle but telling moment of support from the future queen to the queen, a silent acknowledgement of the weight they both carried. For a time, it seemed the turbulent past was behind them. They had forged a fragile peace, a testament to Kate's unwavering patience and her commitment to keeping the family whole, even if the cracks were merely papered over. The fragile equilibrium that Kate had worked so tirelessly to build was not to last. The tectonic plates of family loyalty and royal duty shifted once more, this time with the force of an earthquake, fracturing the hard-won peace. The fault line, as it so often was in this family, was named Heir. When the Duke of Sussex published his searing memoir, Spare, the revelations within its pages sent shockwaves through the monarchy. None felt the sting more personally than Queen Camilla. Harry did not mince his words, referring to his stepmother as the wicked stepmother, and accusing her of cultivating relationships with the press to rehabilitate her own image at the expense of others. The damage was catastrophic. Any hope of a blended family harmony was shattered, and a line was drawn in the sand. For Prince William, the betrayal by his brother was absolute. His policy became one of zero tolerance and no forgiveness, a wall of silence built to protect his family from further attacks. King Charles was caught in an impossible position, torn between his beloved son and his devoted wife. But as the months passed and the king himself began his own battle with cancer, a new perspective dawned on him. Life was too short, and family was too precious. He began to quietly signal a desire for reconciliation, a hope to see his grandson Archie and to mend the bridge with Harry. It was at this delicate juncture that Kate, ever the pragmatist and the family's quiet diplomat, saw a small opening. She had always held a soft spot for her brother-in-law, remembering the fun-loving, mischievous prince she had met at university. Despite the hurtful words and the accusations, she reportedly believed that family bonds should not be permanently severed. With the king's tacit approval, she became a discreet back channel, a whisper of hope for peace. Her efforts bore fruit. In September, during a visit to the UK, the Duke of Sussex met with his father for a private, cordial tea at Clarence House. Camilla was noticeably absent. When Queen Camilla learned of Kate's role in facilitating this meeting, the simmering tensions of the past boiled over into open conflict. The silent partner in the room was no longer silent. The woman who had once tried to separate Kate from William now saw Kate as the instigator of her own personal nightmare. She was, according to royal insiders, absolutely furious. She cannot believe that Kate is continuing to stick up for Harry after everything he's said, an insider revealed. To Camilla, this